Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
I've been thinking about stories as transportation lines recently. Maybe that's because I've been trying to catch up on some older Star Trek episodes lately and thinking about how transporters work probably far too much. But there's something fascinating about that idea of being transported from the physical space in which you reside and into the one fabricated in your mind, especially when somebody else builds some really entertaining scaffolding for you in a narrative. Now, the special ones, they pull a magic trick and they get you trapped in between these two worlds, these two different spaces. I believe the bougie term is liminal space, but those stories possess a certain something that makes them legendary in my mind. I'm thinking about the wardrobe in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or Luke Skywalker training in the swamp on Dagobah, or anything really from David Lynch. And I absolutely love them. So it is my pleasure to introduce cartoonist Kit Anderson on the show with me today, who knows a thing or two about playing in liminal spaces. Kit is an Ignatz Award nominee and the creator behind one of my favorite books of last year, Safer Places, which I've continually raved about. And she has a new graphic novel called Second Shift dropping in July from Avery Hill in much the same vein. Kit, it's so nice to catch up with you and have you on the show with us.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I've been looking forward to this.
Me too.
Well, I reread Safer Places a few nights ago as a refresher for the interview. And for those that are not in the know, it's a collection of short stories, around 20 or so of them, that examine the profoundly impactful smaller moments in our lives. I know the collection was functionally your MFA thesis project, but looking at the connective tissue between them, how much of this was autobiographical? And having read it, no, I know you're not a wizard, probably.
I wish the wizard rumors were true, yeah, but it's hard to say how much is autobiographical, honestly. I think, like, for those who know me, it's probably pretty easy to make some connections, but I always find that ambiguity is, like, a really safe and comforting place to hang out when making things, so, like, some
Okay.
of it is, some of it isn't. And like, also, I think sometimes that ambiguity isn't even intentional, and I'm often, like, surprised by what I notice later on of just like, "Oh, that was definitely that. I see that now." So I think it's pretty hard to not write ourselves into stuff to some
Yeah.
degree, and, like, certainly the feelings and experiences of the characters informs the stories, like, and is autobiographical in some way, so hard to say is my answer.
No, that's okay. I mean, the thing I love about them is how unsettling sort of as a collection they are, but also strangely comforting, and I know that's weird. They got this juxtaposition of being sort of grounded in these mundane daily experiences and also sort of engaging a dreamlike state. And the portal seems to be your narrative muse of sorts. So what specifically attracted you to playing with that mechanism as a metaphor, as a through line for kind of that collection?
You're right. I do love a portal, well spotted. I think it's because a threshold is kind of always like an invitation into
Yeah.
another realm, and that can be fantastic or mundane, or like whatever we find on the other side of that portal, it kind of must be more or less accepted. And like in architecture, it happens all the time, ideally, intentionally, like hallways are connecting spaces. There's like flow between them, ideally, but a door is like a lock to pass, and like you'll find something completely different on one side to the other.
Yeah.
Like for example, I was just touring this castle in Germany. It's very well known, and like you're in this pretty normal, like, it's a castle, but it's like a normal castle room, and then the tour guide will, like, open a door, and suddenly you're in a grotto, and then you just accept it, you know? Like, I feel like the experiences of that castle, so being just, like, a little bit off and a little bit weird kind of, like, lead you up into that moment, and, like, of them sealing the door and then, like, yeah, you're in a cave all of a sudden. It's like, I don't know, it just is a really powerful thing in real life that we experience all the time. They're all, like, transitional spaces, they all kind of represent, like, a small journey, and, I just feel like the world always changes between them all the time, and we always accept it, and also, like, I think or we can often change, like, between these portals, like if I'm about to enter a room or even like start a Zoom call or something, like maybe I'll take a breath and kind of collect myself before like entering the room with a smile. So like, and they're also in that vein a choice. You know, you can choose to not go in the door. Um, and I think that like I really struggle with making choices. So maybe I find that metaphor really comforting. They're like a perfect natural means of like introducing change and maybe like profound or mundane. So maybe it's actually kind of lazy. Sorry.
No, no, I've always found them to be an invitation. So we were chatting before we got started kind of about, um, traumas that were introduced, in, elementary or, middle school years or what have you. And for me, the portal that I've always sort of locked onto are windows. And so windows have always been this very weird invitation between spaces for me, and in my middle school years, they were really prominent in my dreams, and there was safety on one side and the very much the unknown, or almost in the projection in those dreams was the wild,
Yeah.
on the other side of it. And there was always that when you're right there at the threshold, even looking through, it felt very much like an invitation into
Yeah.
another space, whether I could say, "Nah, I'm not really into taking that right now," or I don't
Yeah,
know
and
why
like
it was windows.
well, they're so interesting too, because like doors will completely shut off like that other world, whereas like a window is something like you can look directly through, and like it's an invitation that kind of has a lot more agency. Like you can, if you crawl out of that window, like you essentially know the world that you're going into. So that's interesting. I'll have to think about
Yeah.
that. So that's really cool.
Do you have a specific type of portal that resonates with you?
Um, I mean, I do feel like doors are like is something that yeah, I think I dream about doors a lot, and
Okay.
I I think about them a lot, and I feel like in my comics they just like show up all the time, and I remember even like being really specific. Like I had this like huge argument with myself about like how the doors need to be like in this one comic. Like they're very important to me for some reason.
Okay.
So never thought about it before, to be totally honest with you. I'll have to think about it. Yeah.
Well, there seems to be some shared connective tissue there with dreams that we're both experiencing here. I locked on to the stories about dreams, in the book. Have you ever journaled your dreams?
Yeah, I have a bit. I feel like it's something I always mean to do, and
Yeah.
I think right now that I have a little more space, in my life now that the like book is done, I felt like I was like dreaming all the time in this weird way, like while I was working on that book, and now I'm kind of craving that like connection again. And
Okay.
I think it's really interesting how like once you start observing them and like journaling them, they they get more interesting and you notice them more. And
Right.
anyway, yeah, it's just a really weird phenomena. And like I don't ever like use a full dream in a comic or anything, but like, I still think
Okay.
they're like a really important part of our brains. And like I like to bring in like feelings or maybe certain images or whatever. But like, do you journal your dreams?
Recently, I have. So I've been listening to Rick Rubin's new book. I highly recommend it. I've talked about it already in the podcast on other episodes, so people I'm
Mhm.
sure are tired of me going on about it, but fantastic book. And I was watching a YouTube interview with him, and he was talking about how dream journaling was really, really helpful for him as a
Mhm.
creative. So I'm like, I'll give it a shot. Let's see how this goes. Not looking for weird metaphor, but just kind of trying to understand what my brain was processing. And I've been
Yeah.
able to kind of pull that in. So the trick is have something right next to you. So as soon as you wake up and realize I am awake, then you immediately jot down whatever you can remember because all of us will forget, even if you remember a little bit later on, it's nowhere near as much. So that's been really helpful. And it has helped me take whatever my brain is trying to process through while I'm asleep, and I can go back and relate that to, "Oh, okay, this is." I can give it more rumination, if you will, during the
Mhm.
day because I've written it down. So,
Yeah. Wait, do you have, like, specific tips for what like, do you just have a regular ass, like, notepad and a pen next to your bed, and that's what you use, or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, like, what do you do in the middle of the night if you wake up?
I still do the same thing. I
Okay.
A lot of times it's just a few words even, and just by writing down those, they're almost like cue words. So, just by writing down "da, da, 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 da," I will understand when I actually wake up and actually read that again, it will be able to pull more of the dream out than if I just didn't write it down.
That's very cool. Was this a
Yeah.
creative act? Is that the book that you were reading? Or
Mhm.
am I okay, yeah. That's a good one. I'm, like, halfway through. It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
it's interesting. There seems to be a lot of creative folks that I'm talking to that are going have either read it or going through it, so it's highly recommended. It's a huge book, like, just very influential to me, and I've been going back and watching a lot of his YouTube interviews and,
Oh, cool.
just fascinating, especially coming from a music background, and it's crazy that he's had the career that he's had, but he doesn't go back and personally revisit his work very much. He was talking about, I think, being at a big wrestling event, um, and hearing a song that he hadn't heard for 15 years, and it brought back a flood of memories, but he just doesn't go back and, analyze his work, which I thought was really wild.
Yeah. I need respect. I don't know. It's cool.
I couldn't do it. There's
Yeah.
no way.
I don't know. I in
Yeah.
some ways I do it, in some ways I don't, but anyway.
Well, oh, no, no. The new book that came out is pulling from some of those foundations of lookout stations in safer places. There are a few genres that you could have chosen to explore in there. So why did the magic 8 ball when you shook it land on sci-fi?
Um, I I love sci-fi, like, so much. I pretty much have since I started reading, and some of my favorite writers, I'm not saying, like, the best writers, but some very, very good writers, um, and the ones that, like, I love the most come from that tradition.
Okay.
And I think, like, my greatest loves are kind of like sci-fi and gothic horror in terms of genre, but I really struggle with being scary, to, like, the extent that it would take to make, good horror. So but I still like to, like, really infuse that feeling, in sci-fi or even, like, my short stories. So, and it happens in sci-fi anyway, I think a fair bit and, there's definitely crossover. So, anyway, I think I'm really drawn to sci-fi aside from, like, just loving it, because I think, like comics, it really struggles with, its own identity to some degree. Like, I love the
Sure.
term speculative fiction, and, to me, it feels really similar to, like, that interplay between comics and graphic novels, where it's like a fancier word, and it makes things more eligible for prizes, but it's pretty much the same thing, and also, like, adults don't have to feel embarrassed if they're reading a graphic novel as opposed to a comic. So the same goes for sci-fi and speculative fiction. Um, but yeah, I think it's just like it's an interesting place with like an amazing tradition of speculation and like extrapolation with some built-in like vernacular. And I love to use it to explore some themes that I care a lot about. So yeah.
Okay. Well, that kind of brings me to the question there between safer places and second shift, transitioning between short form and a longer form project, comics, graphic novels that you just talked about. Was that a difficult transition for you?
Yeah, it kind of was. I think I mean, I love the short story form. I'm very dedicated to it. And I think that I kind of naively was like, you can apply everything that you do to a short story like to a much longer comic. And I found like I was kind of trying to bring the same like I don't think discipline is the right word, but, like, intention,
Okay.
to a graphic novel, and then, like, it at some points, it was just, like, very hard to, like, keep everything in my head, like, balancing all of these, like, important symbols or, like, visual metaphors or whatever, like, Um, and I think I mean, I rewrote it like I don't know, 12 times or something, and it's like if you were to look at like the first draft, it's just nothing. It's nothing like its current draft. So I think it just was like I don't I think it would sound dumb to say it was like way more work than I thought it would be, but like it was a lot of work to try to like bring the level of like intention that
Yeah.
that I wanted to like a much longer book. So I would say that's the hardest part. But then like once I got the story just kind of like where I liked it, um then you just you just draw and you know how to do that. So that was great. That was comforting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I always feel like graphic novels, they seem very daunting to me. I've talked to a lot of people who just they jump into it as their first project. I was like, "Why?
I
Why? Why?" You know?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, in just people who wanna write prose, I think that, like, there's so much to be said for just, like, having a proving ground, like, just to prove to yourself that, like, you can finish things
Yeah.
and, like, that you can kind of get a process in mind, like, but even just, like, production, because comics is just, like, so much of it is production, and it's like it's so helpful to get that figured out, like, on a short story before you, like, blow that way up into, like, a much longer form, so, yeah, I love short stories. I'm excited to write more right now.
Well, you chose to work on a graphic
I did.
novel.
I did.
Let's give everybody a perspective of that. So that's second shift. We're following Bertie Doran as she wakes up and moves about her day as an outpost worker for this mega corporation TerraCore as she and her fellows process, it's really cool, process cosmic debris from comics or comets and stuff like that. That's such a cool concept. I read through the advanced copy that Avery Hill sent over, and you're kind of inverting a lot of what we expect from a sci-fi take, or what I expected from a sci-fi take, because usually there's lots of cool tech, or you have situational hostility from aliens, or cataclysmic events on the planet, what have you. It allows you to kind of analyze these big social concepts that we're all trying to kind of wrangle with safely through that futuristic lens. So it's like, oh, I don't have to see myself in that. That's certainly not 2025 under certain administrations. But this is rooted very much in the mundane. So what captures you as a storyteller about that commonplace situation?
Yeah. Um, I really love this intro that Ursula K. Le Guin did for The Left Hand of Darkness, at least for the version that I have, and, like, she kinda just talks about what science fiction even does, and I think, like, most of all, I think what she's saying was that, like, it gives us room to extrapolate observations, so to essentially, like, describe reality and, like, the present world, so I think I focus on the commonplace because that's most of what I observe and what I personally find interesting. And
Okay.
like a lot of great people before me, David Lynch, for example, have noticed that like some of the most interesting things kind of happen there. And I think that would be the case in the distant future as well. And anyway, like most mundane things aren't like if you look really closely at them, sometimes they're like pretty transcendent and beautiful, or like downright scary. So I think, yeah, I'm just sort of um, really fixated on the mundane, I guess, and I like to
Well, you said
explore.
you had trouble with horror, but I definitely, my read was definitely that there was some horror in this, and we've been going back and watching Silo as a family, and I felt some parallels there between Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach series to kind of just give listeners a landing point. But I definitely got horror notes in it, and I know from doing research for this that you're a big Alien fan. So was there something specific you wanted to infuse into the DNA of it as a sci-fi genre piece that was important?
Yeah, I like oh, that's so true about everybody kind of feeling liminality right now. Like
Yep.
I feel like we're
Yep.
feeling it all the time.
Yep.
And I love Southern Reach so much. Have you read the new one of that, by the way?
I haven't yet, no.
Okay, me neither. But here.
Okay.
Anyway, but yes, I love all the alien stuff. Like, I'm sorry, I have this like weird sunbeam here, but I love the alien stuff. I'm a really big fan, and there's definitely like alien DNA in my book, I think.
Yep.
Um, and like I said earlier, I think we have a crossover between sci-fi and gothic horror. And the first Alien movie especially, like, highlights that perfectly. Like, there's lots of, moments, like, that are very, like, gothic, and, like, the way that they move through the environments, like, feel that way to me.
Okay.
Um, so and, like, the way that they're, like, all dwarfed by this, like, kind of uncanny, like, alien spacecraft, and it's, like, completely incomprehensible to them, and, like,
Okay.
I also love that moment when they, like, enter into this new realm, and they just, like, tacitly accept everything that's, like, offered up to them. Like, every time that moment when, like, they walk into the ship and there's, like, that space jockey, and they're not, like, losing it. That just, like, is very representative, like, the magic of a portal, and, like, what it can do. So, yeah, I think, um, uh that movie is, like, probably pretty big in, like, a lot of what I make, honestly. I don't even know if
Okay.
I could say how, but, I love it so much.
Yeah, I was kind of curious if you were incorporating Bishop into it a little bit because Bishop as a character feels to me as a neurodivergent person kind of neurodivergent anyway. He's almost muted a little bit. And AI is something you're definitely exploring in the book. So it's a big narrative concept. And it's kind of a softer approach of control, if you will.
Yeah.
It came off as sort of insidious to me in the same way, Bishop does. And I'm curious why you ended up taking that path that to me feels like a passive acceptance for kind of the characters to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because, like, that's what I'm seeing a lot of. It's sort of I think it's like it's creeping into our lives pretty quickly, and, I think, like, we're accepting that pretty quickly, and it's, like, becoming almost second nature to do so. Like, when your email suggests, how you end it, and, like, you just kind of, like, hit tab and, like, accept that. I mean, I feel like these, like, little things are kind of, like, getting infused into our lives, and, like, your music is or my music, I should say, is, like, very prone to, algorithms. So, I've also heard people say things like, "I can't wait for AI to manage my schedule," which is, like,
No.
really interesting to me. Like, it's like we can't wait to, like, give up this agency, like, even though it's really mundane to, manage our schedules, it's, it is something we do as humans. And, so anyway, I think that this question of agency is something that I ponder a lot, when it comes to AI. And, I think that, like, within algorithms, there's, like, this drive towards something kind of really mundane and boring. Like, you can have an algorithm put in anomalous stuff for you, like the left field examples of something that, like, for me have been really influential when I encounter these things that are, like, pretty far out of my normal taste. But, like, that has to be intentional. For the most part, they're just gonna show you things that, like, they're pretty sure you're going to enjoy. And, I think that, like, an algorithm on its own will just keep giving you more and more of the same stuff and what it thinks that you want, and that's best case scenario. Like, we also know that it can manipulate and even radicalize us. So, that's scary, but so I just, like, I think about what this kind of, like, manipulation essentially will do to a person over time, and then, like, what will it do to a generation of people, and I guess that's what's been on my mind. Like, who are we when we just take whatever an algorithm offers us, and, like, when we do that, like, over and over and over again, and also when these things that, like, they're making are, like, trying like, they're getting more and more soulless, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, what are we taking in? So, yeah, I always get kinda screechy about AI. So, sorry.
No. I'm right there with you. I mean, people can call me a Luddite all they want, but I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm typing in my Outlook in an email or something, and it's trying to finish the
Yeah,
sentence for me already. I hate that. I'm like,
yeah.
"No, no, don't do that. I don't like that."
Yeah,
It's uncomfortable.
exactly. And I think I'm probably, like, overly paranoid that I think, again, like, what science fiction can do is it can just, like, take that moment and then just be like, "Let's put that out, like, 300 years." Like, what does it mean when everybody is, like, using the same language model, like, to write things, if we're even writing things anymore, like, everybody's gonna write exactly the same, or if they write at all. So, that's just, that's real creepy. So, I think
Oh,
about that.
it's terrifying, and it was a really interesting lens for me to kind of work through with the book, because I think a lot of people, myself included, come from I'm of a certain vintage where we're gonna associate AI with Skynet and Terminator, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
And that it is going to be all of a sudden, there's going to be this moment of transition where AI is just decides we're pointless,
Yeah.
and humans are obsolete. And so I think that existentially, I'm coming from this school of thought, and it was really interesting in the book to examine it from this very casual, creepy, it's like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable with this. I like it a lot, but like it's giving me really, really weirded out vibes. So
I mean, Skynet's definitely more, like, badass than Station, for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, and I think it kind of sidesteps the whole question of sentience because, like, I do think that's a really complicated question. I mean, everybody does, but, like, I think it's just like, "Oh, yeah, no, that doesn't have to happen in order for it to be, like, deeply effective, like, on our psyches." So I don't know, but no, the Skynet's cool. I mean, I don't want Skynet either, but very badass.
Well, I talked to a lot of comic artists, and I spent, over a decade myself as a 2D artist myself and fine art photography and stuff. And I'm always curious. I kind of have already got a tenor of this, but I'm just your emotional reaction to generative AI as somebody just starting out. I mean, I'm not trying to thera be a therapist here, but like that, or make things worse with
Yeah.
traumas, but like that would scare the hell out of me,
Yeah.
just
Do you mean, like, somebody just starting making art? Like, just starting out?
yeah, yeah, it's somebody
Yeah.
kind of more new to comics, this is your
Yeah.
first real long form project. The first project was I don't know, it seems like it's easier to put that in a box as I know it was your first project and it's successful. I absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan. But it was also an MFA project, so you're
Uh-huh.
also kind of, the genesis of it is just mentally a little bit different to me
Mhm.
than second shift would be.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, so okay, so if the question is, like, what would I recommend to somebody who, like, wants to make a long form comic essentially, and, like, they have this, pretty powerful tool at their disposal, like, would I be like, "Yeah, go on ahead and use it?"
no, 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 I
Um
know you're not doing that. Like, I'm quite for sure you're not doing that. I'm just trying to get,
Yeah.
I guess the temperature of how I mean, does it feel fatiguing? Like, "Shit, I
Oh,
just started my career here, and now,
yeah.
Disney is already throwing out their stuff that is, you know, created using AI," and, like
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly disheartening. I Okay, and, like, I think environmental impact aside, assuming it's, like, totally innocent, in that vein, which it obviously isn't, I think it's, like, still super gross, and I really don't like it. I love like, for a more nuanced approach, I really like Ted Chiang's article, in The New Yorker, I think called, like, "Why AI Will Never Make Art." I think it was
Okay.
nuanced and really good, and I think, like, a lot of what he was saying was like, inspiration is not like the most important part of like what people make by any means. There's like, I mean, it's important, but like from that inspiration, and I think this is like talked about in Creative Act a lot as well, but like
Yeah.
there are a lot of choices that happen after that initial thing. And it's like I can point to like second shift, like the thing, like the idea that like sparked it or whatever, but, like, it took me, like, sitting at my desk for, like, 4 months, just, like, tedium, like, just trying to, like, figure that story out, and it also was, like, kind of beautiful in the way that, like, again, it was like it was so much work, but, like, it's just so different, and, like, that never would have happened. Like, this change would like, this thing just would not exist if I had just, like if there was, like, a way I could have snapped my fingers and, like, put this idea into an AI to make for me or whatever. It
Yeah.
just wouldn't it simply wouldn't have happened. So, like, I mean, I just think that, like, the work and the tedium and, like, the intention that comes from that, like, dedication is, like, so important to art making, and, like, talking about Star Trek, like, I think about the replicators a lot, like, I think they're so funny because, like, so Picard will invite, like, Dr. Crusher over for dinner or whatever, and then she'll be like, "Oh, thank you so much for making dinner." And it's like, "You didn't make that." Like, you went to a replicator and just, like, requested this thing, and it just, like, came out of replicator, like, that's just by no means the same thing, and it's like so I spend all day making a carrot cake, and yeah, I'm really bummed if it doesn't taste good, but, like, the time that I spent making that cake was super important, like, I learned things doing that, I made choices, I applied expertise that I've built up over years, and I also like, I know that cake recipes are always too sweet, so I'm always, like, taking sugar out, like, I'm doing, like,
Yeah.
these special touches that only I can do. And then, like, also, like, I handled all the ingredients, I shredded the carrots, and, like, if you make a cake from a box or, like, buy it from the store, it's just not the same, and, like, I don't understand why we're acting like it is when it comes to art, like, it just weirds me out so much. I don't get it. And again, I get really screechy.
Have you seen Strange New Worlds yet?
Ye
The Star Trek?
Oh, I think I saw the 1st season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Using the Picard for dinner, I really love that the new captain is actually doing that. So part of what they've incorporated into him as a character is that he cooks real food for people and that that's actually really important. So I love that they were astute enough to kind of pick up on those threads from back when and connect that together with AI. And it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently, and I was watching an episode of Big Think, on their YouTube channel. It had Natalie Dixon, who was the host of that particular, episode, and she wrote a book, and it's largely about divergent thinking and how divergent thinking is the thing that really defines us as human beings. This concept of being a clumsy student of something, and that it's really important to make mistakes and to work through a problem to figure out how to solve it, and that's just intrinsic to being human and to the progression of learning. So for me, as we were all going through COVID and, trying to reinvent ourselves and, figure ourselves out, my clumsy experiment happened to be this whole comics journalism thing. And for you, that feels like it was sort of coming on the scene and becoming a comics creator and launching a career. So why comics? Like what was it about that really sucked you in?
I mean, I like what the clumsy student thing is probably implying. I haven't read the book, but, like, that probably doing something that's important to you and just, like, accepting that it's gonna be, uh, bad, like, you're gonna suck
Yeah.
at it.
Well, it's like your carrot
Um,
cake, right?
yeah.
You gotta take a shot at it, you know?
You gotta take a shot at the carrot cake. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like comics, like I had always been kind of trying to like sneak up on, not always, but like for several years, I was like trying to sneak up on them, and they were just like really hard to figure out. For me, I know not everybody is like this, but they just like they're obviously. Or it was funny because I was like, drawing and like doing pictures or like just like doing like sequential, just sequences, and I was like, this isn't a comic, like, I don't know, I just, I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, so t I couldn't make that, like, magical 3rd thing that, like, a comic is. So, I think I just was really curious about, how to make them and, yeah, and how to make them so much more than just, like, writing and words together. And, yeah, so that question, but that curiosity, like, drove me pretty far, and then I think when COVID happened and we all kind of had the oppor opportunity is a weird word, but, like, when we were forced to just, like, stop and assess what we were doing, um, and yeah, have, like, clumsy student projects, that was the one that was the most interesting, and then I also had um the privilege of, like, being able to go to this comic school and learn stuff that was I don't know, I was really struggling to learn on my own. So, yeah, like, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. So, was it going to school that was really the thing that helped you find your creative footing in the medium? Gave you enough guidance to kind of solidify these things your brain was trying to work through?
I'm gonna be honest, like, I think the community aspect was super important, but, like, the
Okay.
most important teacher and there were amazing teachers, like, I have to say it, like, Jason Lutz, Tilly Walden, like, Dan Knott, they're amazing teachers there. And there's some that I haven't had, but anyway, the most important thing, I think, by far, was just that, like, I made tons of comics, like, just so many, and I think the MFA, like, lots of people did different things, but for me, the most important thing was, like, I just wanna make as many comics as possible in the time that is allotted to me, and that's kinda what I did, and, like, they definitely didn't all make it into the book, like, a lot weren't very good, but, like, yeah, I just kinda went as hard as I could, and I think that's how I got the footing, frankly, was just I just made a lot. I drew a lot of pages, so
Repetition.
yeah, nothing magical, unfortunately.
I mean, well, from my eye, between the two projects, you've progressed pretty significantly in the complexity anyway of your panel layouts. Safer Places was safer. You know, there's a really great visual moment in his dream sequence in the ruined castle chapter of Second Shift, where you kind of created this false wall as Heck is moving through, and there's this kind of
Oh, yeah.
Z pattern that you're creating for the eye to move. So were you playing it safe with Safer Places, or is this like a comfort progression as you've kind of moved through your sophomore outing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the latter, and I probably wasn't, like, as aware of it as you'd think, like, but because I really love the and this book is a 2 by 3 grid as well, like, it's just I'm pretty sure, but, like, that's kind of the, like, bones that I tend to, like, fall back on, and it's like I think this is, like, the thing that came from, like, making tons of short stories. Most of those are 2
Okay,
by 3 grid, like, that's just what yeah, 2 by 3. That's just what I really, like, I don't know, I just loved, like, the rhythm of it,
sure.
and I think I can do, like, endless stuff with it, but I also really like playing around with it or, like, dropping it out, like, in that case, when it kind of to me, it feels like it serves the page design. Like, I think Derrida said, something about, like, the frame or the grid and that it disappears completely in design, like, at the moment of greatest energy. So that's kind of what I like to apply sparingly, to comics. So, yeah, I think just, like, being intentional and hopefully experimental. Yeah, I wanna do more of that. Hopefully, I'm doing more of that.
Well, I mean, I love it because, and I love hearing about that because a lot of the time when I'm covering a project, either I have both the writer and the artist, or, I have the writer on, and you don't get the same perspective. Because a lot of times the writer is going to be like, okay, panel one, panel two,
Right.
that kind of thing. And they've already pre-visualized what you're doing. And this is fascinating just to kind of hear conceptually how you're working through that process in your workflow. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's like it to me, it feels super, like, integrated into, like,
yeah.
I love this, I thought I had invented this, like, new way like, writing comics, but it turns out Alison Bechdel had already done it, and
Wah,
basically,
wah.
like like, did it much better than me, bummer. But, it's like you lay out your panels, do you know, like, the program InDesign? Okay, cool. So I figured, but like basically you lay out your entire comic with like descriptions and speech bubbles and like section headers and everything, like way before you start doing any thumbnails. I think she called it like visual scripting, and Jessica Abel like did a whole blog post about it. It's amazing. But like that made it that I feel like that just like unlocked something in my brain, and I've kind of, like, messed with it when I was making short stories, but, like, that was so helpful, for this book because, yeah, it just all feels, like, so tied together. And I think this is like, uh, yeah, I really like having that control, but also it's probably like uncomfortable to see. So like seeing how much I like it. Yeah.
Someday you'll have to let that go, when you're working with an artist or with a writer. So it's just the
Yeah,
nature
no,
of it. But
I think that, like, I would be super into the idea of, like, working with an artist, but I'm sure I would be a nightmare, but hopefully not.
that's so I have a long time fancied myself sort of an aspiring colorist, and
Mhm.
that is my biggest fear coming from somebody from the photography world where I have this tendency to go back, and I don't know how many times I've worked on certain images over the years. Like I'll rework it and be like, "Oh, I like the colors this way now, so I'm gonna retweak that." I just don't know how easy I would be to work with, and I know that's terrible to put out there on the airwaves so that people can be like, "I'm never hiring that guy." But
Well,
but
I
yeah.
could I could tell you're nice, and that goes a long way. So hopefully I'm nice to you, I don't know. I think I am, but
Well, your relationship to coloring, I really adore the grain, the kind of the overlay that you put in the book. So describe your own relationship with color. Is that a love-hate relationship? Is that how integral is that to when you're thinking about the book as a whole? Do you conceptualize, oh, it's gonna look this way? Or are you working off drawing it first and then kind of filling it in?
yeah, I mean, it's complicated because color, like everything else, like in photography and like other visual things, just like it's such an important part if you choose to use it, which
Yeah.
I don't always because it is so like powerful and difficult. And it conveys so much. Like meaning, there's always like, a color story that's happening. So it can be fun, it can also be a nightmare. And, but I think I'm curious about it, and I definitely wanna be better at it. I feel like it's not one of my strengths, but, like, I'm very curious. I really wanna be better. So I guess I'll just, like, keep thinking of myself as a clumsy student when it comes to color. But yeah. No, I think it's beautiful. I also would just, like, love the look of a black and white page.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's over people who are listening to the audio version can't see it, but I have a an original page from Blue Beetle that's kind of over my shoulder, and I adore original pages. They're just so special,
Yeah.
and that's no disrespect to people who work digitally. I mean, I get it, but there's something so tactile and lovely about being able to hold a page and see how the marker was used, on it, and I don't know. It's one of the things I absolutely adore with comics is just seeing an original and being able to hold it and soak it in.
Yeah. No, 100%. Unfortunately for
Yeah.
this book, I couldn't do it. I had to do it digitally because I
Yeah.
was like, I'm having it, but like, no, I actually did the first quarter with inks, like real on paper, and I was like, this will take me 4 years, at the pace that
Yeah.
I am
Oh,
going.
yeah.
So, no, that's my other thing. I'm really slow. So, but I tried to keep it, like, at the feeling of, like, for myself that I was with digital, you can get really fiddly and, like, zoom in really far and
Yeah.
just, like, ugh. So I was trying really hard to just, like, keep it feeling for my own brain, and we're great. I'm really happy with how it looks.
I mean, you gotta accept the best thing for your own workflow and just kinda roll with it, because I mean,
Yeah.
no
Probably
reason to go crazy.
if I hadn't rewritten it like 12 times, then maybe I could have inked it. So, these are the choices that we make when we make things. So
You encountered the portal, what do you do?
yeah,
That's your question,
exactly.
right? Well, looking ahead, are you planning on developing more stories from some safer places into longer form projects, or
I mean, maybe, but I'm also totally okay if that doesn't happen and that like that they're yeah, for me, a lot of them most of them feel like, "Okay, I did that, and I feel good about it." And right now, I'm just, like, really excited about some new ideas and explorations.
oh, cool.
So, yeah. I just I didn't I just we all love, like, the new idea, so but
Yeah.
I'm no different.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad to hear you're working on some more stuff. I mean, personally, I was sort of hoping you develop the wizard a little bit more. Having an environmental and science degree and my environmental background,
Yeah.
that story just really resonated with me. I really enjoyed it. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, t to hedge, I've been working on something with, my agent related to the wizard, but, like,
yeah.
we'll see if anybody wants it, but
Okay.
so, yeah, maybe, but I think, yeah, that's, like, the one, like, I love that little guy so
Yeah.
much, and I might make more comics for him or something just 'cause I
Sweet.
love
Just do an
that
online
guy.
thing. Just do a webtoons with the
Okay,
wizard.
yeah, maybe. I'll think about it.
Sweet. Okay.
That's a good
I
idea.
was the genesis of this. I just pushed and you did it. So that's as easy as it is. Just reach out to kid folks and say, this is what you should do. And,
And then I'll just do it. It's magical.
yeah.
I'm practically AI in that way. So, yeah.
So why? Okay. You have, for the people again who are listening to audio, you have your friend over your own shoulder and you have the um, affinity with putting animal narrators in your work. So
Mhm.
why the animal narrators? And you just referenced AI. So in Safer Places, they were nice and cuddly and cute.
Yeah.
And then in Second Shift, they became part of the insidious evil AI. So
Yeah.
but you love animal narrators. So
I do. Yeah. And again, I think this is also something that like you clocked that I'm just like, I don't know if I totally noticed that about myself before, which is really silly.
okay.
But I think it's like something that I liked growing up, for example, the Golden Compass, the with the demons,
Yeah.
but and also like always wished for growing up. Like I definitely always wanted my dog to talk. So and then it's helpful that I love drawing animals, but, like, maybe it's also that I love, like, the complex juxtapositions that they offer. So, like, when the cute rat is saying something sort of complicated, like, "I'll do a system diagnosis," like, that just makes me happy. I don't don't know why. But, and then I think also, like, animals are perfect, for me because they can kinda be like a container for difficult emotions. Like, they're,
Sure.
safe and comforting, like in the basement where the kid in there is having a really difficult time processing grief, um, and they don't know what to do with it. So, but like can confide in the cat. So, and I feel like we like say and accept things from animals that we struggle with from people. So, like, I'm not the most huggy person in the world, but, like, you should see me with my dog. Like, I'm the most affectionate
Sure.
person ever. So, and I think also, like, in this book, animals felt perfect because, some lore, animal forms are, like, a total taboo for the AI to take, because there's so much, emphasis on, like, how good isolation from other people is, and, like,
Yeah.
that should always be maintained. So, and it's like a function of being in these faraway stations where like interhuman relationships might like fester. I read this thing about a like biosphere that they were trying. And I think the gist was that like some of the failures were definitely a result of like group dynamics. And so I think, a mega corporation would definitely try to circumvent that. Um, and like and the last reason is, like, I love a changing animal in a visual, form because it allows, like, expression of emotion on an otherwise, like, blank face, like,
Okay.
so,
Gotcha.
yeah. I guess those are all the reasons. Hey, there are
No,
probably more.
no, I really, really love that. I didn't interpret the emotive change that was going through the animals in the book. All I saw were fox, dog,
Yeah.
um, aardvark, like whatever. I don't think there was actually an aardvark, but um,
That'd be cool. I showed you an aardvark. Yeah, I think it was sort of like or I don't know. I don't wanna over explain, so I won't, but yeah, there's something there.
okay. Well, I'm a huge fan of your work and encourage anyone listening to read both Safer Places and Second Shift. Both are fantastic reads, and you get the Yeti stamp of approval from me on both. As an extrovert, who now struggles with the challenge of isolation from having to play it safe with my autoimmune condition, this book made me feel both vulnerable and challenged, kind of see beyond the obvious confines of my life and look a little bit deeper to find and connect with meaning wherever I happen to find it in my life. So I am very grateful, Kit, for that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate, like, your time and your words, and yeah, this was great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, where can people find you online?
I'm on Blue Sky and still on Instagram for now, at I got Kitty Pride, like KITTYPRYDE, and my website is kitkanderson.com.
Cool. Well, we'll put links in the show notes so everybody can find you easily. As is now tradition, I like to end the episode with a shout out so we can finish on a positive note. It's going to be a thank you to someone that has done something kind for you or something that inspired you recently. I'll go first to give you a minute to think about it. So the other day I was scrolling on TikTok and I came across a GalaxyCon panel where Vincent D'Onofrio was engaging with a 20-something fan. And he really gave it to him. I absolutely loved it. It was the most patronizing speech I think I've ever heard about becoming an artist and what the 20-something really needed to do. But he was talking about filling yourself with art and what that means. And I found it incredibly powerful because it was, in effect, a challenge to go outside your comfort zone and engage with art as an individual and move beyond the sort of safety of the online interaction with it and making yourself vulnerable, not to what the artist had intended, but what and how it impacts you, and to let that make you a better creative by, digesting that no matter the field you're in. And I'll drop a link in the show notes so anybody who's interested can check that out. But it was really impactful. I thought it was amazing.
That's amazing. Um, I was recently hanging out with my niece, and, she's pretty young, but, like, I just was so amazed by, like, her excitement and, like, creativity. Like, she basically has, like, an editorial board that she works with. She's like they're always, like, making stories and, like, commenting on each other's stories, and she just was
Wow.
like yeah, it's so interesting, like, the way kids, like, are interfacing with, like, they were doing it all in Google Docs, and, like, when she said that, I was like, "Ugh, I don't know," but, like, what they're doing is they're really interacting, like, with each other's stories in, like, this really beautiful, like, cooperative way, and I think I get really pessimistic about, um, young like, I really worry about, like, young people and, like, what technology will do to them and their creativity, but, like, she is really cool and, like, so creative, and I think it was, like, really, like, like, I don't know, I just had to take a deep breath and just feel like I think, like, it might be okay, like, even with all of this that's available to her, like, she's choosing to make things in this, like, very cooperative, like, very generative way, and I don't know. I just yeah, sometimes I feel optimistic, and I thank her for that.
That's
So,
amazing. That's really
yeah.
cool to hear. I mean, I share some of that concern, I guess. And it's really cool to hear about kids use. My fear is that kids just aren't interacting and they're losing that element of because I see it with my own son where they'll text as opposed to even call. And so it feels like there is much more of a barrier there than certainly, our generation is accustomed to. And I struggle with that, and sometimes I wonder if, like, am I just the old man, and not seeing it all? So hearing a story like
Yeah.
that is kind of empowering and definitely makes me feel a little bit more optimistic. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do think that people, like, will all I hope that they'll always wanna connect with each other, and, like, sometimes that'll be mediated and, but, yeah, I think that desire is always gonna be there, and that gives me a lot of hope. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Cool.
Lily.
Well, indeed. Thank you. Well, okay. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today. It's been a lot of fun to get a chat about it.
Thank you. This was great.
Yeah. Well, this is Byron Neal, and on behalf of all of us at Comic Book Yeti, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.